On the 18th of August 2018, 27-year-old Meighan Cordie and her mother, Jennifer Weathers, age 50, had been attending a wedding in the area. It would be their last together. Authorities would receive a non-emergency call from Jennifer stating her daughter had gone missing after getting out of her car on the way home. But what Jennifer told the police and what actually happened would turn out to be two very different things. After hearing all of the evidence, it will be for you to decide what really happened here. We would like to send our best wishes to the friends and family of Meighan Cordie, who died in puzzling circumstances that even the authorities are unable to decipher. The explanation given by Jennifer Weathers over the phone wasn't exactly accurate. She missed out on some crucial details. Jennifer did mention that the two of them had gotten into a bit of a disagreement, but again, this wasn't the full story. Guests at the wedding commented on Jennifer's intoxicated state and the fact that it was anything but a small dispute. In actual fact, the two were seen screaming at each other. To look at Meighan, you wouldn't think anything was wrong in her life at all. She regularly posted on social media looking very happy and smiling. The center of her universe was her 3-year-old daughter, who featured heavily on her Instagram. But just like the gambler will only tell you when they win, social media often shows only the best parts of someone's life. What really goes on behind closed doors is often a very different story. Meighan's mother drove them to the wedding on the 18th of August, stopping along the way to pick up a drink for Meighan's mother from the Grand Island convenience store. Jennifer then said as they left the wedding, an argument became more heated, and also said this wasn't unusual for them, saying that they were very close but often argued about the smallest things. The argument apparently continued until Meighan had apparently had enough, telling her mother to stop the car and let her out. Jennifer said that as she started to slow down, Meighan opened the passenger door and threw herself from the moving vehicle. According to Jennifer, by the time Meighan jumped out, the car had come to almost a complete stop. As it did come to a halt, Jennifer said she was shouting out her window and looking around for her daughter, who was nowhere to be seen. After approximately half an hour of driving up and down the road looking for Meighan, Jennifer decided to head home due to the fact that she had Meighan's 3-year-old daughter in the back of the car. Meighan would never be seen alive again. The next morning, Jennifer awoke, but Meighan had not reappeared. She had not sent a text or called. Remember, Meighan's daughter was her world, but she hadn't even called to check on the little girl. Jennifer now decided to call emergency services, but strangely, she called the non-emergency line first, and to be honest, she could have sounded a little bit more concerned about the situation. Astonishingly, she even states that she hadn't tried to call Meighan. Surely, before calling anyone else, the person you would call is the one that was missing, especially if that person was your own daughter, who you had left in the middle of nowhere the night before. Although, in her defense, Jennifer said she had checked the jails and hospitals without any luck. Sometimes people criticize the police for not doing their job properly, and in some cases that criticism is justified. But in this case, the police acted swiftly in putting out an appeal for as many volunteers as possible to help search for Meighan. The community came together in no time, and over 300 people, emergency workers, and even Meighan's own father, who was a fire captain in Clackamas, Oregon, showed up. The hours turned into days of searching woodlands, rivers, and forests, and there was absolutely no sign of Meighan. With the search teams doing their very best, there was only one thing left for the police to do: go right back to the beginning with the last person to see Meighan alive, her mother. When police visited Jennifer, they decided to search her car, not letting on that they thought Jennifer may have been lying to them, but under the pretense that they wanted to try and find any clue that might lead them to her daughter. They weren't disappointed. In the front seat of the car, they found Meighan's shoes and cell phone. This was, in itself, strange, but Jennifer had previously told the police that Meighan jumped from the back seat of the car, not the front. But what really shone the light of suspicion onto Jennifer was a more startling discovery. a large clump of blonde hair that still had roots attached from the front seat of the car. Clear reason to suspect whatever happened on the evening of the 18th of August, it was more than just a verbal argument. Investigators brought Jennifer in for questioning while using a lie detector test. And although it was inadmissible in court, the results were very interesting. Jennifer was first asked about what led to Meighan allegedly attacking her. What was most shocking was her body language. Her body said, "I'm not really sure why I'm here." She almost looked disinterested, but at the same time, this can also be a sign of nervousness. Talking in a laid-back, slow way can be seen as someone giving themselves time to think before answering questions, so as not to trip over any potential lies they could be telling. The other red flags for the police include a person folding their arms or crossing their legs. These symbolize the person is on the defensive, and someone may have something to hide. Still, Jennifer's version of the events just did not make sense. She maintained that Meighan was in the back of the car next to her young daughter, so why were Meighan's belongings in the front? People, especially family members, don't just decide to attack each other without reason. The way Jennifer tells it, Meighan's behavior came out of nowhere. She was lying through her teeth. We can say this because of the witnesses at the wedding who saw her arguing with her mother before they left the venue. Whatever had been said, it was clearly enough to make Meighan lash out. It wasn't just a random attack by a daughter on her mother. The lack of concern for her daughter on the face of Jennifer is astounding. She is asked if she and Meighan used derogatory terms towards each other, to which she replies, no, but then insists that Meighan is always calling her names. But Jennifer, being the ever-doting mother, never ever called her daughter any names at all. In other words, it was all Meighan's fault. She sits there looking less defensive and more relaxed, almost self-assured, giving the impression to anyone looking in from the outside that she might be a bit of a narcissist. Wait, what's that, Jennifer? Your daughter allegedly jumps from a car. You can't see her, she isn't responding to your calls, and you don't even leave your seat. It is fair enough to say that she had a young child in the car as well, but that doesn't mean she couldn't leave the vehicle for a minute just to take a look around outside the car. Jennifer goes on to say that she kept her windows down and kept shouting Meighan's name, turned the car around and looked using her headlights. Ask yourself, what would you have done in these circumstances? Would you have gotten out of the car to look for your daughter, fearing that she may have been hurt when she jumped from the vehicle? Could Jennifer have taken the 3-year-old girl with her as she looked for Meighan? Surely the answer to both of these questions is yes. Surely watching the footage of this police interview makes any parent want to grab Jennifer by the shoulders and just shake her. Your daughter is missing, possibly dead, and you don't seem to care. Any mother would be out of their minds with worry. The next statement was very odd. Jennifer says that after looking for a half an hour, Meighan's daughter began to cry. Jennifer says that she wasn't sure what to do, but of course she had to make sure her granddaughter was okay. She says that Meighan's daughter turned around to her and said, "Just leave her, Nana." Now, we can't possibly know if this is true or not, but let's just look at the facts. Meighan and her daughter were incredibly close. They were the center of each other's worlds. Would a 3-year-old just say, "Leave her. Leave my mommy in the woods all night. Who cares?" On the other hand, if Jennifer was telling the truth, then most people could have sympathy for the predicament she found herself in. She would have to decide between her daughter and her granddaughter. It's not an easy choice to make. What was that, Jennifer? You didn't even attempt to call your daughter, who had just gone missing, potentially hurt badly, so badly she might not be able to respond. It is possible that Jennifer knew exactly what had happened and therefore didn't need to call her daughter to find out where she was. Strange question put forth by the interviewer, but he asks Jennifer if Meighan had ever jumped out of the car before, to which Jennifer replied, "She has threatened to, but she's never done it." Now Meighan is just some lunatic who threatens to jump out of moving vehicles all the time until she finally did it? Jennifer said that when she arrived home, approximately midnight, she put her granddaughter to bed and went to bed herself. not waking up until around 5:30 a.m. Another red flag here, any police officer will tell you when someone starts answering questions that haven't been asked, it usually means they're trying to cover something up, especially when they go into such detail like Jennifer did. Notice how every time Jennifer is questioned, she continually brings the conversation back to Meighan, trying to emphasize how bad her behavior was. Yet, strangely, no one from the wedding reported seeing Meighan drunk or behaving bad in any way. On the other hand, over a dozen people said that Jennifer was the one who was drunk, far too drunk to be driving. Could this be what started the argument? The relaxed yet chilling nature of the laughing outburst is startling. Jennifer is becoming more and more nervous as the interview goes on, finding it increasingly difficult to sit still. Perhaps Jennifer is much more intelligent than anyone is giving her credit for. The interviewer is being very careful not to challenge her. He just allows her to speak, perhaps in some hope that she will trip herself up. Next, Jennifer moves on to Meighan's life in general. She criticizes her daughter for not being organized, once again trying to show that she's the caring mother trying to guide and advise her daughter on how to live her life. Meanwhile, of course, she says little or nothing about her own life, just as she hasn't done all the way through the interview. We learn a lot about Meighan, but how much so far can you remember about Jennifer's life? Not a lot. A huge red flag here. Previously in the interview, Jennifer stated that she didn't try to call Meighan because she was more focused on her granddaughter. Now, when asked did she try to call Meighan before going back to look for her, she hesitates before answering the question. Did something just click in Jennifer's brain? Did she just realize she had not been honest with her first answer earlier on? Realizing, of course, that the police had found Meighan's phone, she had to run herself into a dead end and then was forced to admit that she found Meighan's phone on the back seat when she took out her granddaughter from the car the night before. After the hesitation, she is very quick to jump in and say, "I had her phone." It is clear that the interviewer also noticed this inconsistency when he says, "When did you figure that out?" almost with a tone of contempt for the story he was being told. As the interviewer is making notes, Jennifer just sits quietly, looking like she was in deep thought. It wasn't until 12 seconds later that she adds, "Under the seat when I got out of the car." She had already made the point that she found the phone when she got out of the car, but just to reiterate her version of events, she felt it necessary to elaborate and state that the phone was under the seat. After the interview, the investigation continued, but as far as the searching went, police felt they had done all they could. After 4 days of looking, the search was called off. The results from the lie detector test proved inconclusive. However, they wouldn't wait long for a new development. By pure coincidence, the very next day, the 23rd of August, a group of joggers minding their own business noticed something down an embankment approximately 9 miles from where Jennifer said Meighan had left the car. Upon closer investigation, it was, indeed, a body. To be more specific, the body of Meighan Cordie. The body appeared to have rolled 20 feet downhill next to the on-ramp for Highway 18 in Drayton. Tragic though it was, from an investigative point of view, it was just what the police needed to try and find out what really happened to this young woman. The next day, the autopsy was conducted, and the findings were intriguing. The version of events given by Jennifer looked less and less likely to be true. It was determined that Meighan had died from a blunt force trauma injury, not consistent with falling from a car and hitting your head. She also suffered 2 broken or severed vertebrae, leading pathologists to conclude that she probably died instantly upon hitting the ground. However, authorities remained coy about the findings, not wishing to speculate about what had happened just yet. A month went by since the body had been found, and if truth be told, little progress had been made, because still nobody had been able to establish beyond a reasonable doubt the events that had led up to Meighan's death. But District Attorney Brad Barry also made a point of saying that Meighan's mother had not been honest about the events leading up to her daughter's death, and said it was a tragic case that had been clouded by misinformation. Something else that made the authorities suspicious were Meighan's bare feet. As we know, her shoes were found in the front seat of her mother's car, but her feet showed no signs of having walked any distance at all barefoot, let alone nearly 9 miles to where her body was found with no shoes on. The working hypothesis for the police was the opposite of what Jennifer had said. They believed that Meighan had said she wanted to get out of the car, but did not think that Jennifer had slowed down as she told police. They believed that Jennifer may have accelerated towards the highway as Meighan opened the door. The speed that the vehicle was gathering may have caused Meighan to lose her balance and fall out of the car, presumably then rolling over the ramp and down the embankment. Again, according to the Attorney General, the authorities believed that far from being concerned for the health and safety of her daughter, Jennifer simply carried on driving down the highway. This was a reasonable assumption. After all, we know that Jennifer did not call the police about her daughter until the next day, after allegedly driving around and looking for her for 2 hours. Unfortunately, with a lack of evidence and the only witness to the events being a 3-year-old child, there just wasn't much more for the police to do. But clearly demonstrating that they did not believe Jennifer one little bit, they decided to get creative with their approach. No fewer than a dozen witnesses came forward from the wedding and said that Jennifer, who was of course the designated driver, didn't have a drink or two. She was knocking 'em back. As she left the wedding, it was obvious that she had had too much to drive as she swayed from side to side while entering her car, getting into the driver's seat. The district attorney announced that they could not pursue homicide charges because of a lack of evidence. Instead, they now decided to arrest Jennifer Weathers for DUI and reckless endangerment, while still highlighting that Jennifer's story just didn't make sense. The clump of blonde hair found in the car turned out to be Jennifer's, so now there was little doubt that Meighan probably ripped it out during a struggle. The altercation between them was clearly more serious than Jennifer dared to admit. Jennifer was charged in late September and went to trial in October. Prosecutors knew it would be difficult to get a conviction because no tests had been carried out that night. They were relying entirely on witness testimony. Prosecutors did their level best to try and find a more serious charge that could be used to convict Jennifer for a more serious crime. Unfortunately for them, they couldn't find one. It was clear that the prosecutors did not believe Jennifer or her version of events. They believed that, at the very least, she was guilty of some form of negligence. There was some slight relief for prosecutors. Jennifer decided not to fight the case. She entered a plea of guilty and was given a harsher punishment than most first-time offenders. She went to jail for 5 days, and she was put on probation for 3 years. The frustrations of law enforcement, from the police right up to the judge, was clear for everyone to see. They believed that Jennifer had gotten away with a much more serious crime, which explains why she got a slightly harsher sentence. Following the trial, Weathers, who has since changed her surname to Yeager, is forbidden from having any contact with her granddaughter, who now lives with her father in Salem, Oregon. In what was a strange, maybe even cynical move, Meighan's father launched a lawsuit against his ex-wife after the trial. He sued her for $500,000 for negligently causing Meighan's death by driving while intoxicated. As well as all of this, he filed another lawsuit for $900,000 against the wedding venue for over-serving alcohol and failing to prevent Jennifer from driving while drunk. The lawsuit against Jennifer was dismissed by a judge after Meighan's father failed to respond to a motion filed by the defense to have the case thrown out. Sadly, it is unlikely that we will ever know what really happened on the evening of the 18th of August. So many questions remain unanswered. The only testimony came from Meighan's daughter, who was brought in by police investigators. While speaking, she cast doubt on the whole case by saying that her mother didn't just get out of the car once, but twice. She said that her mother and grandmother were fighting, then Meighan got out, but was persuaded to get back in by Jennifer, only to have the same thing happen again, but of course, the second time, Meighan didn't reappear. In the U.S., there is no age limit for people to testify in court. Anyone can be summoned, but in this case, it seems there wasn't enough evidence to convict in the first place, so putting a child through the distress of standing up in court just wasn't worth it. We can all be thankful that Meighan's daughter still has one parent left. Her father takes good care of her. She is loved and well taken care of. She is the real victim in all of this. She'll never see her mother again, a mother that she was so close to. This case leaves as many questions in its wake as it answers. Prosecutors now have closed the case, but in their mind, and in the minds of anyone watching this video, doubts do linger. Jennifer Weathers, a caring mother who had a troubled relationship with her daughter, or a lying narcissist who was happy to leave her daughter dead in the middle of nowhere to avoid being caught for DUI? We'll leave it for you to decide.